But if you survey the newspapers of America, what you don't see is what you hear on talk radio and what you read on the internet, which is the truth. What you see in the newspapers is what the government or the media itself, which is sort of a government unto itself, wants you to hear. The greatest fraud in American history has been uncovered, which is the fact that there is such a thing as called man-made global warming. It turns out that there was a conspiracy that was being conducted and still is being conducted by criminals with doctoral degrees, gangsters in the academic fields who were making millions and millions of dollars on grants to continue pushing the global warming myth. This myth has been brutally exposed. Their emails have been found where they're talking about covering up the real data. Let me give you an example. Let's say you never went to college or you don't understand statistics. These fraud artists in the universities who've been pushing the man-made global warming lie are sending out graphs that are based somewhat on the so-called hockey stick picture. Now, what's a hockey stick graph? It shows a slight... Look at the bottom of a hockey stick. Goes up at a slight angle on the bottom of the stick, right? And then suddenly there's a steep jump and rise up the handle of the stick. These gangsters in fake science, climate science, have been using the hockey stick picture to show a jump in man-made global warming, when in fact the actual rise in temperature over the last 100 years has been about 0.5 degrees centigrade, not 1.5 to 2 degrees centigrade. You say that's not a lot, and it's enormously different, number one. Now, the reason they're able to get away with the hockey stick graph is because all of their computer programs were rigged to produce hockey stick graphs. In other words, no matter what they were presenting, it would be presented in a form of a hockey stick picture. That would be like rigging a pinball machine, rigging a card game, rigging a racetrack game, or a race at a racetrack. So these scientists should be not only laughed at, they should be fired and arrested, and their money should be taken back from them. You're not reading about this in the Washington Post or the New York Times, these old-line newspapers that are filled with nothing but the government media complex rubbish. You're not reading any of the stories that are really out there amongst the really thinking people. Final nail in coffin of man-made global warming is a big story. You want to talk about the fake global warming, and Al Gore should be running and hiding right now. He should actually be running out of America right now. Now that Al Gore has been found out to be the biggest fraud artist in over hundreds of years, he makes the alleged 5 mafia families of New York of yesteryear look like paupers compared to what he's gotten away with, this guy, in my opinion. The man is a complete and total faker. You remember the one of the polar bears on the ice floating? A staged event. There's as much ice on the earth today overall as there was 50 years ago. But your child, your delicate young lotus blossom child, who you raised as a vegan, who doesn't eat anything with a face on it, believes in global warming, believes Obama is the Messiah, believes this, believes that, starves herself to death with vegan diets she doesn't understand, deficient in various vitamins, her brain chemistry is off day and night, doesn't know a thing, but she's convinced she knows about global warming, she knows about war and peace, and she even knows about love and marriage. Even though she has no love and marriage, even though she has no peace in her heart, even though she knows nothing about global politics, she's been brainwashed by the liberal establishment into believing she knows all of these things. The final nail in the coffin of man-made global warming has come out. There was a hacker who went into the email chain of the people pushing this big lie and found them lying for years about the global warming data, making it up, covering it up, throwing people off scientific committees who questioned them. They were marginalizing anybody who dared challenge them. They were practicing a form of scientific fascism. It's been all found out. So the reason newspapers are going broke, they say, is because the ad revenue was down. Well, maybe that's true. That's one of the reasons. But why is ad revenue down? Well, less people are reading papers. Why are less people reading papers? For one, convenience, the convenience of the internet. But for two, because the newspapers don't give them what they want. They don't get what they want in a newspaper. Every newspaper headline is against the family, against the military, against the police, against the church, against God, country, and home, against families with children. Now, why would anyone want to buy such a thing? Now, that alone unto itself wouldn't be so bad, but on top of it all, the newspapers are filled with outright lies. Lies about everything. Lies about global warming. The final nail in the coffin of man-made global warming has come out. There was a hacker who went into the email chain of the people pushing this big lie and found them lying for years about the global warming data, making it up, covering it up, throwing people off scientific committees who questioned them. They were marginalizing anybody who dared challenge them. They were practicing a form of scientific fascism. It's been all found out. Now, you say, well, everyone knows this who's intelligent now, and it is true. Even the hemorrhoid's been on this, even though he only went to grade school. Even the hemorrhoid can follow the lie. That's okay. But I want to remind you that on the Savage Nation over 2 years ago, I had a scientist on called Harm de Blige. hardly can pronounce it. And he argued against man-made global warming in the most beautiful manner. Right on this show about 2 years ago. He's the author of a great book called Why Geography Matters. I was so captivated by his stories. But I want to make another point. This show is usually at least a year, if not more, ahead of its time. If it was 20 years ahead of its time, I wouldn't even be in business. It's good to be slightly ahead of your time, like Panasonic used to say. But if you're too far ahead of your time, you wind up either in a bug house or in a jail. You understand that? So I try to stay just slightly ahead of my times. Not too far ahead. A year and a half is about as much as you can take. I told you the evidence was against global warming, that we're going into a global cooling phase. Did I find the data? No, but I know enough about science to read the data. And my conclusion was it's all a fraud, being promoted by Al Gore, who I said, not so jokingly, was the head of the biggest crime family on earth, the Gore crime family. Do you understand that there are billions of dollars that have been made in this and are going to be made in this? Trillions of dollars if you let the biggest charade artist get away with it, which is Obama. If he pushes this global warming crap in Copenhagen next month, he is signing your death warrant, the death warrant of America. You understand? So that's why I say you got to understand that the papers are dying because they're not giving you the information that you need to even make an informed decision. I am giving you the information you need to make an informed decision. Remember, this show starts late in the day on the East Coast, early in the evening, really, and late in the day on the West Coast. So people have heard stuff all day long on other radio shows. I'm not going to get up here and read you the headlines from the Drudge Report. You've heard it all before in the morning. The golfer does that. That's all. He comes in and his show is based on 3 websites, and that's the end of it. All right, does a good job. You know, I saw the movie over the weekend with the Preacher affairs. I understand the whole... Who did with Burt Lancaster with the Preacher, with the fake, and they burned down Elmer Gantry? I mean, I've seen Elmer Gantry. I realize most people in conservative radio are Elmer Gantry. I realize that they bang the Bible of conservatism, and boy, did they make the noise about God and country and patriotism, and they tell you to send your son to die while they fly high overhead in a Gulf Stream. I understand why you have cynicism about many of these Gulf Stream conservatives. I understand it. Incidentally, I coined the phrase Gulf Stream liberal way back. So the reason I survive is because I'm slightly ahead of my time. And I'm telling you, I gave you the information that you needed. June of what year? Is that 06? June of 06, I played this. Now, you're just hearing it now from the hemorrhoid like he discovered it himself somewhere. The man who never went, and he has a blackboard and a professor. You should get a cap, too, to go with it. Why is it the guys who have no education always want to be a teacher? I don't understand it. Why does he act with a blackboard? I don't understand. All right, he has an audience. He got lucky. It won't last forever. This, too, shall pass. The same way global warming was accepted by the radical left and the liberals who took it as gospel, it's the same thing with guys like the hemorrhoid. He's accepted for a while as sort of a prophet until you come to realize that it's Elmer Gantry.
Hackers have tried to prove global warming researchers are massaging the figures after stealing sensitive emails from one of the UK's leading climate research centres. The documents were then made available to the public from a Russian server.
According to reports, there's more than 1,000 emails which reflect bits of discussions between various scientists throughout several years. But from from the information that we've got so far, some of these alleged emails may actually hold the key or actually the clues to prove that the theory of global warming is a huge conspiracy.
Correct. It is a huge conspiracy. They're calling it ClimateGate. And the fact is that all of the fakers in the business should be immediately arrested, put on trial, and when found guilty of fraud, they should be not only imprisoned for whatever is appropriate, but all of the research funds should be paid back. Any of their property should be sold off in order to pay for it. And that includes Al Gore. Al Gore has made a fortune off this lie. Now, the reason I'm spending so much time on this is because Obama is about to put the final nail in the coffin of this country's great enterprise. If he is allowed to go to Copenhagen next month and sign off on the global warming nonsense, the cap and trade bills and the EU garbage, we're finished as a nation. It will cripple us forever. Now, as you well know, Obama himself has been either duped or he's absolutely not as smart as he pretends to be. But the fact of the matter is the man has got to be told in no uncertain terms, do not sign the cap and trade, do not go to Copenhagen on behalf of the American people, or we'll throw every Democrat out of office. I don't think it will matter to them.